Hi, I'm Agnieszka Swita of Camera. You are watching Live Prog.
Hello music friends, what's up? Marcel Hasse here, the Dutch guy. Welcome to this new video here on Live Prog. And I've been enjoying some music this afternoon. I hope you have been listening to some great music as well. You know, the funny thing with music is that you have these albums that definitely take you a while, like several spins before they really capture you and you really think, okay, this is a great album, I like this. And you have these albums that from the moment you hear them you think, wow, yeah, I like this. I had that back in '93 when I for the very first time heard what we then called symphonic rock. These days we call it prog or progressive rock. And immediately I thought, okay, this is the kind of music I like. Now over the years my taste in music of course has developed, but still there are these albums that when I hear them they have that ring to it that I think, oh man, this is going to be a great album. And the album I have in this review, I think within 30 seconds I figured I am going to like this album. And that is this one, Sleepless by Agnieszka Swita. Now you can see that reflection. It's been a while since I did a jewel case. I mean, these days a lot of albums come out in digipacks, but we have a jewel case here with the CD and on the rear the track listing and a very ugly, scary spider, if you can see him. Ugh. Better not look at the back too much. Alright, well, let's stick with the booklet then, because that holds the most important information. Alright, Agnieszka Swita. I think it was a matter of time before she would release her first solo album. I mean, most people know her from, of course, She, the musical by Clive Nolan. Before that, probably a lot of people in Poland knew her because she is a Polish singer-songwriter. And already in her youth, at the age of 9, she wrote her own songs. So she has been very involved in music as a singer-songwriter, but it was until 2005 that a lot of things changed for her, but also for Clive Nolan, because that was when they met. And that was when they found they had a connection, a click, and they started working on what would become She, and what also would become Camera. That was the name that they chose for their collaboration. And it's not just the She musical that was released, because they also released well, sort of an acoustic album covering a lot of songs from Clive Nolan. Now, if you know who Clive Nolan is and what he does and in which band he plays in and what songs he's written over the years, you know that he has a lot of material to choose from. And she was singing them and he was playing them, and they traveled as a duo around the world performing them, and they released an album with that. But of course, as I said, She, the musical, was a very significant event for Agnieszka. That was when she really got the spotlights for the first time and people could really hear her sing, her performance on the DVD, but also on the live shows. I gotta say, I was really impressed by her voice. There were a couple of tracks on She that I really loved. Then, of course, they continued the collaboration and they moved into the next musical, Alchemy, where again she proved to be an amazing singer. And now we have her solo album, and I was of course quite curious, how will that sound? In a certain way, the sound of Sleepless should not be surprising, because it is very much in the vein of She. When you listen to She and you listen to this album, you hear a lot of similarities. And yes, I have to be honest, you definitely hear the influence of Clive Nolan throughout the whole album. However, 10 tracks on this album, 9 of them were written by Agnieszka Swita. The last track, the title track of the album Sleepless, was written by Clive Nolan. Now to start with that last track, that Clive Nolan track, that is really a Clive Nolan track. It breathes out the atmosphere that you hear in his music, especially in what he did with Shadowland. That is still one of my favorite, well, musical projects of Clive, and I like the way that resonates into this album and into that song. Of course, Clive is also a singer and he does backing vocals here on the album, and the way that he does that chorus vocals with Agnieszka, I really love that very much, and that brings me back to She. But despite the similarities, I think this album definitely can stand on its own. I mean, you don't necessarily have to know Clive Nolan, or you don't have to know She to enjoy this album. Even if you're not a musical fan and you steered clear from She, you can definitely enjoy this album, because the sound that Agnieszka brings on this album reminds me a lot of the neo-prog from the mid-90s. The kind of neo-prog that I discovered for the first time and I definitely loved very much. But also there's this smoothness of the 80s Britpop in the music. And that combined together with that musical elements from She, that mixture together creates a very beautiful, very up-tempo, very melodic and very catchy album. And I gotta say, the first track is for me an absolute highlight. I have to cheat a little bit. Something to Believe. When that song starts, you listen to that first track of the album, it is really catchy and you immediately will start singing along. I mean, that's what I did. I immediately start to sing along the chorus in that track. So that is the effect that this album has on you, and that is something I like. I mean, there's so much music that is often too complex and too complicated, and this is music that you can enjoy.
Break the shield of sad delusions that feed your
And still, it has this mysteriousness that I also find in the music of Clive Nolan. I mean, if I check the lyrics in the album, I really see the similar elements that also Clive Nolan would write about. What I did notice was, I thought it was interesting, I didn't expect that in this album, but the next set of tracks, the second, third and fourth track, are sort of a trilogy called Cosmo, part 1, 2 and 3. And we have the first track, Code of Humans, then Disclosure and then Asylum. And when I read those lyrics, and also especially here the beginning of Code of Humans, this appears to me as a sort of a sci-fi theme. And that is something I would not have looked after Agnieszka to be a bit into sci-fi. I don't know, but it gotta say, very beautiful songs. There are some really amazing melodies on the album, and vocal-wise, I mean, as I said, I loved Agnieszka's voice in She. She can be very powerful, but also very soft at the same time. I also loved her parts in Alchemy, and I'm really happy that I now have an album with just her singing. I mean, I love the other vocalists as well, but it's nice to have just her voice here on an album, and just could really listen to the beauty of her voice. I like that very much. She surrounded herself by an amazing band. Now, of course, no surprises, Clive Nolan on keys there. But I found a few other gentlemen very surprising here. We have Steve Harris on the guitar. Now, Steve Harris you may know from Ark, but also from the Paul Manel band. Ark is an album I reviewed very early in my days in live prog, and that is an album, at least the album Wild Untamed Imaginings, is an album I very much love. And it's really cool that he is on this album as well, because the guitar parts that you find on Sleepless are really fantastic. There are some amazing guitar solos already in that first track, but also later on. The track Borderland, for example, begins with a nice acoustic part, but also has a beautiful guitar solo in it. The track In Her Arms is a beautiful, soft ballad with a matching guitar solo. It's a really amazing track, and the guitar work is really fantastic. Sometimes it goes a little bit heavier with a little crunch in it, but overall this is not a rock album, this is really a melodic album, really very proggy, very symphonic. And we have Adam Faulkner on bass from the band Jump. I gotta say, I'm not familiar with him, but the bass lines on this album, and especially in track number, and I have to cheat on my list, track number 6, Trapped. There's this really nice bass line in that track, but overall the rhythm section is really good. Surprise in the lineup is the drummer, Dave McIntosh, because he is not just the drummer on this album, but he is also part of the metal band Dragon Force. Now, I don't know if you ever heard a Dragon Force album. Wow, these guys are fast, and these guys are really impressive. And yet, you know, even though he is this really amazing, fast metal drummer, he really manages to slow it down and go for the more melodic parts here. So that I am really impressed by the way he did that. So the drums here and the whole rhythm section is really fantastic. The link between Dragon Force and Agnieszka is again Clive Nolan, because Clive Nolan has the Thin Ice Studios and Dragon Force has recorded several albums there and Clive Nolan has been involved, so well, that made the connection there. The keyboard parts by Clive Nolan are of course phenomenal. I am hugely biased, and I think I'm hugely biased for this album because I already love Agnieszka's vocals. I am a huge fan of Clive Nolan's music, especially his writing. I think he's an amazing writer, which he shows in these musicals, but also in, of course, his keyboard play. And there are some amazing keyboard solos in here, beautiful piano parts in here. Wow, you name it, it is there. It is such a beautiful album. It all came together real nice, and the result is, I'd say, a fantastic album. I am really loving this album, but as I said, I'm probably biased, so I would say you have to listen to this album yourself. It doesn't matter what you think of She, it doesn't matter what you think of musicals. You just gotta listen to this album and listen to the beautiful voice of Agnieszka Swita, listen to the beautiful melodic progressive music that is brought on this album here, and I hope you will love it as much as I do. So that's it. Now, of course, let me know what you think of this solo effort by Agnieszka Swita, and of course what you think of her performances in the musicals She and Alchemy, and whatever you want to tell me and let me know about this album. It's all good. It can all be down here as a comment on the YouTube channel, and of course you can click on the subscribe button, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and of course I hope I will see you guys with a new review.